Hey, everybody, and thanks for joining me for another episode of Straight Jacket White Rabbit. I'm Adam, your host as usual. Today we're going to be doing a dive into the Roswell incident, guys. Okay, July 7th, 1947, a crash is reported. Well, the wreckage of a crash is reported by rancher Mac Braswell. Now, everybody has heard some variation of the details of this story. I'm sure by now this story has gone worldwide multiple times. You guys, there's so many things that the U.S. government messed up on this cover up. I think this was the first official cover up that was just completely botched by our government. First of all, you have to. I'm going to take you back a little bit before the actual crash because a lot of people don't realize there are things that were happening in New Mexico before the crash that I believe played a vital part in this. UFO traffic in New Mexico was up for a few years. There were years of increased levels of sighting in New Mexico. All of it seemed to be focused around military installations and especially the White Sands military installation. This is where we had nuclear capable bomb squadrons and stuff, guys. So there were a lot of these UFO sightings. I mean, police officers, general public, military. There were lots of people reporting these sightings, guys. Now, why is that important? Because in the months leading up to the UFO crash in Roswell, there were just the few months leading up to it, guys, there were over 300 verified reports of sightings of UFOs in New Mexico. That's a lot. Now, a lot of people don't realize that there was a reported second crash site. The first crash site discovered by Mac Braswell on his ranch was debris. A large debris field is how it's described. And you know, people went out there. He went out there. He saw the debris. He gathered some of it up. He took it back to his house, and he actually showed his wife and kid. Now, not only did he do this, he showed his neighbors. Some of his neighbors were actually being shown this material, this metal that could not be burnt or cut by Mac Braswell. Now, this metal had another innate weird property to it, to where it was as thin as foil, you guys. Some people said thinner. And yet, you couldn't rip it, you couldn't tear it, you couldn't burn through it, you couldn't cut it. And whenever you crumpled it or folded it or bent it, it would go back to its shape that it was in when they found it. We don't have metal that does that now, not reliably anyways. They are working on liquid metal that does this, but not the same thing. Now, after he shows his neighbors this, they tell him that he should go tell the sheriff. So he drives into town to go see the sheriff. However, there was a second crash site as well, guys. We're going to go over to this crash site. Now, this crash site, there were many witnesses, including a firefighter, military personnel. There's a lot of people who claim to have seen this second crash site. And at this second crash site was reportedly not a debris field, but reportedly a disc actually embedded in the earth. Like a violent crash occurred. And multiple alien bodies. Sergeant Melvin Brown, you guys, Sergeant Melvin Brown was one of the people supposedly at this crash site, the second one with the disc. And as he arrived there and he was guarding the scene, he was told by other military personnel that he was not to look under these tarps that they had covering things at the crash site. Well, according to him, when their attention was taken away to the ship and they weren't paying attention necessarily directly to him, he took a peek underneath these tarps, guys. And what he saw were alien bodies. Unmistakable, about 4 feet tall alien bodies. Now, how you dismiss this from a military man telling everyone this, coming out and saying this, and a firefighter and a bunch of other witnesses, somehow this crash site has not gotten the publicity that the actual debris field got. Now, why is this important? Because it's what the military wanted you to focus on. They wanted to focus on the Mac Brazel's debris field because, yes, it was spectacular metal and everything, but there was no actual ship there. Just debris, guys. And although the debris was phenomenal and it had great properties and astounding properties to it, that's what it was. It was a debris field. The second site had an actual reported crashed flying saucer. The one, I'm assuming, one of the ones that the debris came off of. And I say one of the ones because a lot of people believe what had happened is this UFO was either struck by lightning, because there was a gigantic lightning storm going on in the area at the time, or that it hit another UFO. They were flying too close to each other, something got messed up in their guidance system because of the electrical storm, I don't know. But according to some theories, that's the second theory, is that there were two ships that crashed. Now, I don't know of any stories that talk about a second disc recovery, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen, guys. The military was all over this part of New Mexico for months. They were in and out of people's fields, on people's properties. They were scouring for anything else. So if there was a second actual craft, not a second site, but a second craft at another site somewhere, we were never told about it. Or at least I was never informed about it, and I have never seen anything talking about a second craft, other than two crafts might have collided. Now, maybe the other craft that hit this craft wasn't damaged badly enough to crash, and that's why they couldn't find a second crash site, you guys. And I apologize again about my voice. Those of you who didn't see my video yesterday, I'm recovering from laryngitis, so my voice is a little rough, and it tends to fade in and out sometimes. But bear with me. I'm trying my best. Now, the reason that I think it's important that they were focusing on the one crash site, like I said, is because it was debris. It wasn't an actual ship. But there are numerous witnesses who claim to have seen a crash with alien bodies, guys. Gerald Anderson, Alice Knight, Vern, can't remember his last name. They were all interviewed by UFO theorists and claimed to have actually seen the craft and the alien beings, you guys, as well as Sergeant Melvin Brown, who I told you looked underneath the tarp. There's a lot of things about this incident that don't make a whole lot of sense, you guys. And it just doesn't add up. I mean, when people tell a story, one of the things we base kind of our BS meter, or our, you know what I'm saying, our filter for what's true, is not only the air of truth to your story, but do you stick to your details? Do you add in new things? Are you trying to make money off of it? There's a lot of things to look into this. Now, that being said, Mac Brazel didn't make money off of this. And later, Jesse Marcel, who was one of the military people in the famous photo, holding up the tin foil and balsa wood and paper. He was the original man on the scene of the debris field crash site. Now, when he retired, came out and said that there was an alien crash site. He did not believe that this was any known country in the world. He believes it was extraterrestrial material that he gathered up that day. These people come out, guys. The military and all these industrial complex people act like that we don't have people with a conscience. And before they die, guess what? They start listening to their conscience. They don't want to deceive the public any longer than they have to. And why do they have to? Because they're being threatened. They're being bullied. They're being not listened to by the general public, made fun of and dismissed. Now, like I said, there's a lot of people involved in this. Okay, there's General Roger Ramey. He is, a lot of people believe, the linchpin, the kingpin behind this. He was the man in the military put in charge. He was a brigadier general. He was put in charge of the cover-up. A lot of people believe this, including Jesse Marcel, who later on said that he was instructed by Brigadier General Roger Ramey to, with the famous photos and everything, to sit there and hold him. He said there were people with microphones and flashlight or camera flashes and everything, and they were asking him questions. And Jesse Marcel said, "I can't answer these questions." He goes, I couldn't tell him anything. I couldn't tell him I couldn't answer the questions. I just had to sit there with this grin on my face showing the material while Brigadier General Roger Ramey told the press what was what. Now, I'm sorry, but you expect me to believe that in the same military base that we have the most brightest minds at the time working on atomic bombs and technology, that the people who were out in this debris field collecting all this debris, and it wasn't just Jesse Marcel, guys, all these other military officers, you're telling me every one of them were too stupid to identify a weather balloon, whether or not it was the original weather balloon they claimed or later on their spy balloon. Either way, you expect me to believe that these highly trained military personnel could not tell the difference between extraterrestrial property material that had very odd specific properties to this metal and weather balloon parts and tinfoil and balsa wood and things like that. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's utterly ridiculous to believe that that's the case. And the military, here's the thing, you guys, the military has changed its story 3 times. First, it was, we recovered an alien disc, a UFO. They actually said recovered a disc on one of the announcements. This was an actual official announcement from the military. Now, here's why that's important. They didn't say debris from a UFO. They said they recovered an actual UFO. Why is the wording important? Because, like I said, there's a debris field and there was an actual UFO crash site. They were telling the public about the crash site, the second one, that they had recovered a UFO in. And I believe that that is what the actual Army press release intended to do. However, less than 24 hours later, the military comes out and says, "Oh, wait, no, we don't have a flying saucer disc. We have a crashed weather balloon." And back then, you guys, you have to understand the state of mind of people back then in the 40s and 50s. They didn't have any distrust for their government for the most part. It was the government's trying to help us. And I'm not saying that they didn't have hard feelings at the government at any point back then, but it wasn't to the level of skepticism and, being under the microscope that our government is today because of the lack of trust we have in them. Quite frankly, in my opinion, for good reason. We've been lied to enough. Now, as far as the craft and the alien bodies goes, guys, this is what I think. I do believe that there was a second crash site, and I do believe that there was a partially buried from upon impact disc. I do believe there were alien bodies. I do believe there was a disc, and I do believe that these witnesses saw what they said they saw because independently interviewed, they all described very, very similar things in the crash site. Now, different people saw different things, so their stories didn't match exactly, but they were there at different times, so that stands to reason they wouldn't see the exact same people standing in the same places and everything else. But the details of certain specifics, like the angle at which the craft was sticking out of the ground, things like this were all identical, guys. They matched up in every statement from these witnesses. Things that they wouldn't, you know what I mean? They wouldn't necessarily, most people wouldn't think of as a crucial detail. But the fact of the matter is that little details like this let you know that these people were independently telling the truth. If you see a car crash and you go get witness statements, everybody's going to have one thing in their witness statement that differs from everyone else, be it they saw the speed, or the guy was wearing an orange shirt. No, he was wearing like a reddish yellow shirt. No, he was wearing, there's going to be lots of different things that people see. When people are put under pressure or intense things are happening and you're trying to remember detail, it is not always as easy as most people think. High stress situations tend to cause people to not notice small details. But if you look at the bigger picture, like I said, into like the angle of which the crash was there, the fact that there were bodies there, be it covered or uncovered, because like I said, when Sergeant Melvin came to the scene, they were covered. However, the firefighter and numerous other people claim to have seen the bodies pre being covered up. So, there's a lot of instances that their stories don't make sense, and the fact that they changed it 3 times from a UFO to a weather balloon to the Project Mogul spy balloon. I mean, if anybody else was telling them that they had proof about it, if one of us were telling them that we had proof about an alien sighting or an alien crash, and we changed our story 3 times, would they believe us? No. Right? Because your BS detector would be going off. You'd be like, warning, warning. But for some reason, we're supposed to go, okay, now you're going to tell us the truth 3 stories later. No, I'm sorry, but that aircraft, that crash site, that debris field, all of that was shipped off to numerous military bases, guys. And here's the thing. Everyone says Wright-Patterson, Wright-Patterson. It wasn't just Wright-Patterson, guys. That stuff was shipped off multiple times, parts of it to Washington that we know of, through cargo manifests and things like that. We know that crates left there and went to Washington that were undisclosed items. We do know certain things that left that base. And here's another thing to think of, you guys. The official reason for Area 51 being built was for secret military aircraft projects. Yeah, well, I bet it wasn't our military, or it wasn't our aircraft, but I bet there was aircraft projects after we were trying to reverse engineer it. It was built literally within 5 years or so. I think 5.5 years, 6 years from the Roswell crash. This was planned out. The government said, we need a place to investigate these crashed UFOs that we are recovering. We need it to be secret. We need it to be out of the way. And Area 51 was born. Now, was Area 51 later used for all this other things and secret test flights of the bombers and things like that? Yes, absolutely. I'm not denying that that was there and that they used the base for that. What I'm saying is by the time they were doing that, parts of UFOs and things were being kept in these hangars and off-site on the S4 part of this base once it was finished with construction. Those of you who don't know, S4 is a completely different part of the base, miles away. It's still on the base, but it is miles away from the main base of Area 51. Now, like I said, I've said this in numerous other videos, guys. These witnesses for the military, everyone critiques them because they come out after they're retired for numerous years, or they're practically on their deathbed, or in some cases they are on their deathbed. I don't blame them, you guys. You have to understand the level of secrecy this issue is dealt with in the federal government as well as other circles. This is above nuclear secret technologies. This is above like the nuclear bomb. The classification or the security measures took to keep this in the shadows is unbelievable. Sorry, I keep leaning on the table and knocking it around, so the camera got a little shaky. But my point is there's not just 1 or 2 witnesses. There are dozens and dozens of witnesses to UFO activity, the crash sites, both the actual debris field and the actual UFO itself crash site. People described this disc in detail, or as much detail as they could remember. And a lot of it lined up, guys. It was the texture of the metals, the markings on it. Anything that would be of significance A lot of them all remember the exact same details. Our government is not telling us the truth about these crashes. If you believe people like Bob Lazar, which I do, and I mention him in a lot of my videos that have to do with UFOs, because quite frankly, the man is the I mean, he is the linchpin in people coming forward. He is the start of people coming forward and saying, we've had enough of this secrecy. The world needs to know all of this. They don't need to know things that are going to cause a national security crisis, but they do need to know that we're not alone. We're being visited by people who are not regular people, not humans, or at least not any human form that we know of. Whether or not they are from another time period, another dimension, I don't know. Another planet. But people like Bob Lazar, people like, Jesse Marcel, and later on Mac Brazel, Jesse Marcel, and later on, what was his name? I'm sorry. Melvin Brown. Sorry, I couldn't remember it for a second. I was trying. Melvin Brown. These people who come forward and they give their stories, whether or not it's close to retirement or not, you guys, they're doing it because they've gotten old enough to where they're not concerned about the repercussions of this. There are people who've come forward with information regarding UFO crash sites, guys, whose families have been threatened. Now, the military claims to disavow all knowledge of this, but somebody came and threatened these people, and according to these people, they seemed like an official military source. We have no evidence. Speaking of evidence, here's one last thing I want to leave you with this, you guys. Okay, I'm going to pull some up real quick because I have the dates right here saved. Okay, from March 1945 through December of 1949, base records and RAAF messages, outgoing messages, from October 1946 through December 1949 were all destroyed. All of the base records that were outgoing messages and a lot of the base messages in general from those time periods were destroyed. 1945 through 1949 and 1946 through 1949 for the actual outgoing messages. These were completely destroyed. When people did a Records Act to try to find out why these records were destroyed, you guys, I can't make this up. I'm going to pull it up right here. Hold on. It says they were destroyed, and according to a military official, the document disposition form did not properly indicate under whose authority the disposal of records action was taken. Let me put this in plain English people speak for you, okay? The military, when questioned about why can't we have these documents, said, oh, the documents were destroyed from this year to this year. Okay, well, there's paperwork you have to fill out to destroy federal documents, you guys. So they requested the paperwork that was filled out to destroy these documents. And they were filled out very specifically to what documents were to be destroyed. And the thing is where it signs responsibility, what general, lieutenant, commander, whatever, ordered this action, there was none given. Nobody knows who, well, I'm sure somebody knows, but nobody knows who started this process of deleting records, you guys. These are federal records. You're not allowed to destroy government records just at will. But we did. So we know our government's lying to us. They've come out recently and admitted to it as much. They know that UAPs, UFOs, USOs are all real. Not only do they know they're real, but they've been studying them for quite some time. Now, I don't know about you guys, but Roswell is the quintessential American screw-up in cover-ups, you guys. And we got better over the years. There have been other crash retrievals since then that we've done. And we've gotten better over the years at quieting witnesses and getting it out of there quickly. No, you know what I mean? No one else seeing the debris or the actual craft. We've done better at it as a government, which is a shame. They should not be hiding this from us. But it's because they've gotten more experience, okay? We have, if you believe governments and people from around the world, we have a task force or possibly multiple task force from America who are assigned to go and retrieve crashed UAP, UFO technology. So Roswell's really the start of the public's knowledge of this because the Air Force messed up and released things they shouldn't have released to the public. They call us conspiracy theorists. They call us, the fringe media. They call us a lot of stuff, you guys. But the fact of the matter is, I'm sorry about that. Let me turn my volume off. But the fact of the matter is that they lied. They've proven they've lied. They've admitted to lying to you. So, is it any wonder that a case from 1947 is still being questioned by the American public when they've changed their story multiple times? Their own witnesses have come out near death or near retirement or after retirement and came out and debunked their entire story, telling us, yeah, it was extraterrestrial craft debris. It was a UFO. There were alien bodies. When are we going to stop letting the government lie to us? I agree with people like Tim Burchett from Tennessee, congressmen and people like that, of that ilk, who say that it's time for declassification. We as the American public are paying for the research going into these things. You don't even trust us to let us know that these things are here. We had to drag it out in front of Congress. Now, Jesse Marcel came in contact with the actual metal of this craft, you guys. And the things he saw and the things his son saw and his neighbors saw were all recorded. And they all report the same odd technology in this metal, the ability to memory foam itself. We don't, like I said, we don't have that today. And you're telling me that all these independent witnesses, this person, this person, this person, this person, all these people say the same thing about this material, but it was somehow just an experimental weather balloon or a spy balloon. You didn't have spy balloons with metamaterial back then, you guys. Okay? It's like saying that the freaking moon landing was CGI. Did you see CGI back then, you guys? Okay, it wasn't CGI. I'm not saying it wasn't filmed in a studio. I have no proof either way. Okay, but it wasn't CGI. The CGI back then was ridiculously corny. Now, these witnesses come forward from instances like Roswell crashes, you guys, and they're chastised for life. I don't believe it's okay to chastise anybody for coming forward and trying to expose the truth to people. I'm a huge advocate of the truth, be it the multi-dimensions that we know exist, be it alien, UFO, foreign objects, whatever you want to call them, that we know exist, be it cryptids we know exist, government programs experimenting on people we know exist. These are not things we make up. There's proof behind all of this, you guys. And one of the things I cannot stand, and anyone who knows me knows I cannot stand, is the people being lied to. The people being lied to by the government that is sworn to serve the people. And that's all it seems our government does in situations like this. I mean, they've experimented on us with time travel. There've been experiments on people with severe amounts of LSD and drugs. Where does it stop? Where does ruining people's lives for the sake of secrecy stop? I'm not saying don't have an advanced UFO freaking reverse engineering program. I think most Americans would be like, if we have the technology from them, yeah, we need to look at it and try to reverse engineer it. Absolutely. I mean, who'd be against that? And for what reason? Oh, no, we don't need to do... No. I'm absolutely for any technology that can better off our life. Better off our life, let me be clear. I'm not talking about like AI robots and stuff like that. You've already seen my video on that. But I'm all for technology that can help mankind. I believe, like I said in a lot of other videos, I believe a lot of our technology has come from reverse engineering alien tech. I mean, look at the technological boom we're in right now. We've been in for the last, what is it, 70 years? We have hit a point where our technology is fast developing beyond our capabilities to control it or enforce laws upon it. Which are bad things. But there have been a lot of good things coming from technology too, you guys. Medical advancements, scientific advancements in the field of archaeology, technology, microcircuitry. It's infinite. But there are points of secrecy I'm willing to accept. Like, for instance, I'm willing to accept, we don't need to know things like information on weapon systems if they find them. We don't need to know things that are going to cause international incidents with other countries if they're let out into the public. But not to the degree of whether or not we're alone, where these craft are coming from, and who is operating them, and do we have them or do we have their bodies? I believe that is a right. That is a human right. That's not an American right. That is a human right, you guys. I mean, what are the big questions in life? What happens when you die? Are we alone? There's a very few big questions in life. I'm not saying there's not more than those two, but those are two of the big ones. So, are we alone in the universe is a big question. If they know the answer to that, we need to know the answer to that. Now, as far as the actual craft and debris being sent to the Wright Air Force Base, as well as other ones, there's numerous people, military involved people, who have come forward as well from those bases, Wright-Patterson, all of them. And those people have come forward years later, once again, and said, yeah, we had these things here. Yes, we stored alien bodies here. Yes, we stored the craft here. But the reason the general public does not accept this, you guys, is you have to realize that we have become a society brainwashed by public media. This is why I love independent media sources nowadays, because you can trust them more than you can trust any mainstream media. Mainstream media is controlled, it's manipulated, and quite frankly, the CIA has admitted to having embedded agents in pretty much every form of newspaper, radio, and television since before the freaking 60s were over. They've admitted to this. This is a fact. Okay, look up the guy, I believe his name is Richard Doherty, ex-CIA officer. He tells you in his book, he tells you in live interviews. We've had operatives all over that are misinformation officers and officers who are simply at these places to stop any flow of information that the government doesn't want released about UAPs, UFOs, or any of this. So, free press my butt. How are you going to claim that we have a country with free press if you're doing things like the Roswell incident? I mean, the Roswell incident, there were actual people who were told that they were not allowed to send telegraphs. They were not allowed to do news reports. They were not allowed to air certain things about this incident, or they would have trouble with the U.S. military or the U.S. government. Numerous people said they were threatened, or their jobs were threatened, or their livelihoods were threatened, or their families were threatened. But people let it go. And like I said, man, they all the way up until the 90s, we kept trying to tell people, we're like, no, this was a UFO crash. Don't listen to what they're trying to feed you. It's bull. And then in the 90s, they came out with the Project Mogul, and they changed their story, like I said, for the last time, the third time. Then it was a special spy balloon. I don't care how special your spy balloon is. It doesn't have metal that's memory foam. Okay? It didn't have a freaking entire field's worth of debris, let alone a second crash site with a disc and bodies. I don't care if they claim it was dummies on board. I don't care what their excuse is. They cannot actively use the excuses they've already given to explain away all of the detailed accounts, the eyewitness statements from the Roswell crashes. Now, I have to say this. I love how it's called the Roswell incident when it didn't actually, no part of this took place in Roswell per se. I mean, no, I'm not going to say none of it did because radio people there were threatened and things of that nature, but these actually did not take place in Roswell. They took place in small towns around Roswell or near small towns around Roswell. But here's the last thing I'm going to say about the Roswell incident, you guys. We were lied to. It's apparent, many of us know it. The truth has gotten out enough that we have 10 times the believers that we had even a few decades ago, guys. I mean, it's a big movement now. People are realizing that they've been lied to and they're sick of it. And we're waking up, and that's a great thing. And I think more people need to address, and I know people laugh when I say this, you guys, but I really do believe every one of us should be writing to Congress. We should all be submitting Freedom of Information Act requests on this stuff, trying to find any scrap of evidence we can to bring forward so that these people who are like the people who are coming forward in Congress right now have the artillery, the armament to show this proof. They have the proof of some of these things. They've already disclosed certain documents and projects that they're now investigating, and I believe that we are closer to true disclosure, as whatever that's going to look like as far as the end result. I'm not sure, but I believe we are as close to true disclosure as we are going to be for quite a while. And if we don't take advantage of it now, it could go away, you guys. We've seen how fast the government's flipped this stuff. It's overnight. I mean, people forget about it and they stop talking about it and then it's gone. So while this topic is here and it's hot and it's now and people are interested, we need to strike. And when I say we need to strike, I mean we need to petition our governments. We need to FOIA request information. We need to demand transparency. We need to forbid our government from privately contracting to companies like Lockheed Martin. We can't do it anymore. Halliburton, Lockheed Martin, all these big major corporations that we give technology to or we give all this other stuff to, and then we say, well, we don't know what's going on with that stuff because they're not held to the same standards of classification and declassification that our government is because they are private entities. We need to bar governments from using private entities as a shield to block the truth from the general public. I'm outraged as an American, and I'm outraged even more as a person of humanity that these countries around the world think that we're dumb enough to believe, and we're going to continue to be dumb enough to accept these answers that we're being given that are nonsensical. They don't cover the topics that we bring up as far as witness statements go. And quite frankly, their stories keep changing. We've had enough. We're done with it. We want the truth. This has been Straight Jacket White Rabbit. I appreciate you all, and I'll see you on the next video.